hydration tablets or beer with the band?
I do love a beer with the band, but only one.
Welcome to the M26 Fit podcast. I'm your host, Magnus Olson, and our next special guest is the definition of dual strength, from smashing himself in endurance sport to moving souls through music. Andrew Szumowski is a triathlete, a seasoned musician, and a man committed to living with rhythm, resilience, and purpose. From pushing his body to the limits to performing with one of Australia's top bands, he's living proof that you can age with power, passion, and spirit. So strap yourself in and we'll hear about discipline, alignment, and unlocking the potential many of us leave untapped. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on board. I said you've had some pretty amazing athletes and professional athletes on here, so to have me on there is a privilege. Thanks.
No, mate, thank you for making the time. And just to give our listeners a bit of context, mate, just give us a little bit of your backstory and first how you got into music and then next how you got into triathlon.
Yeah, so come from a musical family. So my mum's a piano teacher. My grandfather was a guitar teacher. To be honest, my brother, who's a few years older than me, started learning, piano and organ, and he was getting a lot of attention. And I was like a 5-year-old kid going, I want the attention. So I'm like, I want to learn too. So that's how I got started and continued on. So I've been sort of playing, 45 years, I guess. So, yeah.
And what do you play?
So predominantly keyboard, so piano, organ, and a bit of bass guitar as well. So, yeah.
And what about triathlon? When did that? Have you always been an athlete or?
No, not at all. Like, to be honest, I was started running a few years back, training for a half marathon, the Sunny Coast Half Marathon, and I got a stress fracture in my foot. And I wasn't training properly, didn't have the right nutrition. So saw a podiatrist and she's like, well, just start swimming, keep your fitness there, because I didn't want to lose all the fitness that I'd gained. So I started swimming and then started surrounding myself with a few people that were doing triathlon. And so she's like, yeah, get back on the bike, strengthen your feet, strengthen your legs. So, started cycling and thought, well, why not? And give it a shot. So that's how it started. Only really a year and a half ago, and I think I'm up to my 7th or 8th triathlon now. So yeah.
Wow, mate, that's awesome. Now, how old are you?
52, turning 53.
Right, so 53. I'm 56. So most blokes our age are slowing down.
Yep.
And taking it easy and trying to enjoy the latter part of life. And you're really leaning into this. Firstly, triathlon, and then obviously still in with your music, mate. So what drives you? What keeps you motivated?
Challenge, to be honest. It's a challenge. It's a purpose, like having goals. So part of my personality is always looking for something, looking for that new thing or and I guess with triathlon, it's so new to me, and I guess it's an addictive kind of a sport, that endorphins you get from the endurance training and that's booking in a race, having that purpose, chasing that goal. That's what gets me. So. All
right. Now, physical training, and we might just touch on mental health. Now, yep. I've openly shared my story. The listeners are probably sick of hearing it, but the physical training for me had a big impact in keeping me healthy mentally as well. So what's your view on that?
Absolutely. That's the catalyst for me starting to run a few years back. I was going through some pretty heavy struggles, some personal struggles. I was drinking a lot. Diet was non-existent. And I just sort of looked at myself and went, you're heading down a path that is not really who I am. Like it wasn't, as a younger adult growing up in my 20s and 30s, I was always pretty active and doing gym and so forth. And so I always took pride in my health and appearance and so forth. And I was just heading down a really bad path. So I went to a doctor and was prescribed medical, antidepressants and so forth. And I tried that, and for some people it probably does work, but for me it wasn't. I actually felt worse. So
I was exactly the same.
Yeah.
To be honest, it didn't agree with me.
Yeah.
For me, it was like a numbing sensation. Like
Exactly,
everything
yeah.
just felt numb, and I'm a fairly passionate sort of a person.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden to have the highs taken away from me was detrimental. Like, yeah, sure, I didn't get the lows, but I didn't get the highs. And yeah, it was like I said, like a numbing sensation for me.
Exactly. And that's what I felt. I just felt like I was just existing. So I've just made a choice to start physical activity, and I started doing some CrossFit stuff and then running. And running was probably the biggest thing for me that helped me mentally, because you know, especially when you do your long runs, your hour runs, hour and a half, 2 hour runs, you really, it just cleared my mind, and I felt amazing afterwards. And especially if it was in the morning, it set me up for the whole day, and yeah, it's great. So that's, you know, for me, the biggest, I guess it's not a cure, but it's the biggest catalyst that helped me get through those lows, and to be honest, feeling the fittest I've ever felt in my life at 52, turning 53 is it's great. So
fantastic. A lot of people get stage fright. They don't like being up and performing in public in front of people.
Yeah.
So you're obviously in a band and you're doing that, and then now you're competing in triathlon. Which do you reckon requires more mental strength?
Look, for me, triathlon for sure, because it's so new for me. So, you know, lining up for a race, especially say the Cairns half Ironman that I did last year, is the longest race I've ever done. It was my third triathlon or fourth triathlon, and I didn't know what to expect. So, yeah, that was pretty nerve-wracking, jumping in the water, and you know, music, I've done it for so long, I've played for so long that it's sort of second nature for me. So it's I still get little jitters and nerves, but I know what to expect. So
yeah. Just talk through for our listeners, like a half Ironman is obviously half the distance of an Ironman, but how does it compare to a Olympic distance triathlon? Just tell us the distances for the different disciplines.
Yeah, so half Ironman's a 1.9 kilometre swim, then you followed by a 90 kilometre ride, and then a half marathon, so 21.1k run at the end. So an Olympic distance tri is a 1500 metre swim, 40k ride, and then a 10k run at the end. So yeah. So almost sort of double, I guess, a bit more than double.
So how did you go in Cairns? What time? What level are you competing at?
Well, it's funny. Our age group is freaking competitive. Like they're just crazy. So I had a goal. I engaged a coach, Toby Coote from Sunny Coast Triathlon Academy, and I sort of gave him a goal. I said, mate, I can't run. Well, I can run, but not very well. I can swim with a surfboard under me, but without that, my legs are dragging along the pool. But I can ride okay. So my goal is to do it under 6 hours and complete the thing and I had 6 or 8 months from day one to get started. He's like, yeah, that's fine. And I ended up doing about 5.5 hours for my first one, which was
wow.
It was fine. The next one that I've got coming up, the half Ironman, I want to try and get closer to 5 hours for that. So really just competing with myself, not competing with that group. I mean, there's a lot of the guys in our age group have been doing it for so long, and they're the 30th, 40th Ironman or whatever, and so I'm such a newbie to the whole thing, but it's great just competing with myself. So.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah, the last triathlon I did was just under 3 hours. So when you double that distance and you didn't even double the time that I did, mate, that's a great effort. Yeah. So well done.
Yeah, well, I'm about 2.5 hours roughly for my Olympic tries at the moment. So, which is for me is great, considering it's not something that I've done my whole life. So.
No. All right, let's touch on discipline. What does that look like for you today if you would define discipline, and how's that changed for you over the years?
Yeah, look, it comes down to structure. Again, going back to my personality, probably like an ADHD sort of a personality, very, doing something and then all of a sudden there's a bright light over there. I'm like, oh shit, I'll do that. So having that structure for me is discipline. So having my coach do my training program, make me accountable for that training program. That's discipline. And then, you know, I always book in races, just book the year out. I've got this race, this race, this race, this race. So I've got that purpose, I've got that goal setting. So that for me is the discipline. And, you know, it spreads out to other aspects of my life now as well. So,
what about nutrition? What's that look like for you now?
That's probably the biggest thing that I wasn't really across. I guess being older and starting triathlon and putting your body through, you know, endurance stuff, I engaged a lot of different people. So I found a nutritionist, a sports nutritionist, and she set up a training program and a race nutrition program for me. And it was a game changer, really. Like starting running before I hurt my foot, I really had no nutrition plan. So I'd run for an hour and a half without having any gels or anything, and it was doing more damage than good. So having a really good nutrition plan was so important, and just the balance of food, you know, making sure that you've got everything covered and you know, supplement if you need to. So
yep, we have a mutual friend who's a bit of a gun cyclist, and I know that he's also got a coach. He's anal about his nutrition, but he's also quite anal about data. And his coach receives all of the information that's generated through his cycling activities. Do you get into that level of detail with your coach?
Yeah, absolutely. We use a program, Training Peaks, and Richard, the guy, actually rode with him last Saturday, and his coach. We went for a ride out to Glasshouse Mountains, and it was great to catch up and have a good sort of 100k ride with him. But yeah, data's super important. So sleep data, he gets everything. So he gets I wear my Garmin to bed, so he gets my sleep data, he gets my resting heart rate, and he'll adjust my training schedule according to some of the stress. Like if my HRV level starts to drop too much, he'll sort of back the training off a bit, and yeah, just keeps it balanced, because you know, we're not 20, so we've got to make sure we don't, you know, burn ourselves out.
It's the recovery element. It's interesting you mentioned HRV. That's something that in the past 6 months I've had a lot more focus on, and I've gone back to because I've been generating the data for so many years, I've gone back and I've just looked at moments when, just before I've become sick, for example, you'd see the trend happening that your HRV is dropping, and sometimes your sleep scores. And so I have heard that some coaches will review that, and if you've had a really crappy night's sleep and your HRV, then your coach will give you a call and say, hey, listen, what we got planned for tomorrow, we're going to dial that back. Do they get into that level with you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and he's pretty accessible too, so I can give him a call and say, mate, I'm just not feeling great. I think I'm coming down with something or whatever. He's like, okay, just do some stretching, do a bit of strength stuff, and just forget about the swim or the run today, and we'll get back into it. So he's always really big on not trying to make up for stuff you've missed out on. So if you miss a run, trying to catch up on that run will do you more damage. He said, you're not going to lose your fitness from missing one run, so just get back on track to your program. So yeah.
All right, fantastic. Now, as a musician, you're obviously pretty good with rhythm. Is that something that's helped you, do you think, when you are running and cycling, that you get into that zone and you get into that rhythm?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with running. Like I often do my long runs with headphones and music, and part of my running program is you know, increasing my cadence and learning how to run efficiently, and you know, we do a lot of track sessions and that. So having music that's in tune with that cadence speed and running to that music, it makes a huge difference. So I use that a lot.
Oh, that's interesting, because I'm apparently tone deaf, and music's not something that's a strong suit for me. So no, that was interesting. Longevity. So I interviewed a doctor recently, and that was our topic of conversation. And again, as we're getting older and we're getting to the back half of our life, what's your view on longevity? And is that something that you're training, you approach that any differently now that you're in your 50s?
Yeah, for sure. It's, you know, you have that realization, and sometimes it might be a catalyst where you catch up with someone you haven't seen for a long time, who's your age, who went to school with them, and you might go, wow, they're might sound awful, but they've let themselves go. They've slowed down. They just, and you go, I don't want that. I want to have, live the best possible life I can for as long as I possibly can, and that's for your kids, for everyone around you, your family. It's really important to me to having a younger daughter as well, being active for her as I get older, and being, encouraging her to, she's swimming now as well, so just encouraging her to be active as well, and sharing those moments. So
that's a huge thing for me, because I think that you never underestimate the power of the example that you set. And I think, like, as a father, like you said, my son, he grew up, I think when he was 18 months old, I had him in the pram, he's in the gym with me, and he's gone on, he's living a very, very active, healthy life. So, yep, I think that is supremely important.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about, do you get your blood work done regularly?
Yeah, look, once a year, sometimes twice a year. And, yeah, it's interesting because my family history is not amazing with like heart disease and cholesterol. And that was another catalyst as well to get through. I think my dad had his first heart attack at 42.
Really?
Not wanting to follow that path, and really focus on what I can do without taking medication to make sure that my arteries stay clear and my heart's strong and everything else is what was important. So.
Have you done the calcium test?
Yes, yep, yeah, I did that 2 years ago. So,
and what'd you get?
It was 0, which is good, and I'm actually due to see the cardiologist in July. And I think it's really important, especially if you're starting to do endurance training when you're older and you haven't had that back base from younger, to make sure that everything is in check, because if there's something underlining that could cause an issue, you want to make sure you're on top of it before you push yourself. So
I had a friend of mine who's our age, super fit guy, does some extreme cycling events like Townsville to Brisbane type races, and one day, Sunday afternoon, he's just gone off for a little leisurely ride, got down the road, didn't feel right, came home, rang the ambos. It turned out he was actually having a heart attack. Not a cardiac arrest, but just an actual heart attack. And so he was the one who put me on to getting that artery calcium score. Same thing, mine came back 0, which is very fortunate. But my father had a quadruple bypass 15 years ago, and he's got a history of heart disease in the family as well. So, that's great advice. What about supplements? Is that something that you're big on?
Look, I think seeing a nutritionist and having her advise on what will work, like things like creatine, there's research that backs that for years. So that's something I take often. I'll take fish oil as well for your heart health. Vitamin D. It's funny because I'm sort of fairly tan. I'm in the sun a lot, but the darker you get, the less your body absorbs vitamin D. So I was a bit low in vitamin D, even though I was in the sun, most days. So I take vitamin D supplement, and just recently NMN, which is something that's Tell
me more about that.
Look, there is a bit of science behind it.
What's it stand for?
I wouldn't have a clue, but it's a bit of a craze. I've just started taking it to see if there's, I don't know if I feel any difference, but look, there is a bit of for older athletes and older people. There is some science now backing that, but that's it. Look, I don't take a lot of supplements, just the ones that have got a proven history and that my nutritionist has advised me to take. So
something that came up recently, I had the pleasure of interviewing Guy Leach, and he's a little bit older than both of us, but he brought to my attention, and I actually changed my diet as a consequence of that, is protein. The amount of protein that you need as you get older, just for muscle health. So is that something that's been part of your nutritionist program? Yeah,
look, it's really balanced. So, focusing on like more that Mediterranean style diet.
Right.
So a lot of fish, a lot of chicken, and I'll have steak maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks. But it's that balance, making sure you've got enough carbs, especially with the endurance stuff. You need to fuel, so like oats in the morning, and some eggs at lunch or whatever. But yeah, it's important to keep that balance, I think. So.
You touched on before that when you were going through a bit of a mental health struggle, like you were drinking a bit as well. What's your relationship with alcohol at the moment?
Look, I'm fortunate with I don't have that want for alcohol. So look, I guess for me, when I went through those struggles, it was more to numb the chatter in my mind. So what was going through my head, the alcohol would numb that. If I didn't have alcohol for a few days, it wasn't like I craved it. But so now I love a beer and I love a really nice glass of wine, but it's very rare. And when I do have it, I really, really enjoy it. So, it might be at lunch with some friends, or my brother might have a really nice glass of wine and I'll just have one and I just really enjoy it. And it doesn't, it's not something that I crave and want to have all the time, but every now and then, it's definitely something I still...
Yeah, because I guess with the training that you're doing at the moment, so let's just actually touch on that. How many hours a week are you putting into your training?
About 10 to 12.
10 to 12,
yeah. So with Sunny Coast Half Ironman coming up, I'll probably push that a bit more. I'll have a look at my training peaks and see where that goes. But so, it's normally every day. I don't really have a day off. So, and 2 sessions a day. So it's like a Tuesday's up at 4 o'clock for a ride from 4:30 till sort of 7, and then that afternoon you're doing a run session, and you work in between. So it's pretty, and I'm now sort of trying to push 5 swim sessions a week as well. So
that's solid program. What about sleep? How many hours of sleep do you try and get every night?
Aim for that 8 hours. Yeah, it's really important. Like that's probably the hardest thing for me mentally, and some of the challenges that I faced when I was having those struggles was sleep. Closing your mind, switching off your mind. I really struggle with that, and still do to some, to certain, I get to bed and you sort of might be laying in front of the TV and you think, oh, I'm so tired, and you get to bed and you're like, bing, like everything through what I've got to do tomorrow. Well, it's going through your mind. So I've actually started doing some functional breathing. And that's helped a lot, sort of nasal breathing and that sort of stuff to before bed, to almost like meditating, I guess, to try and calm. And, we're all got our phones in front of us all the time, so trying to not have that, an hour or so before bed to try and switch that off, and that's a big distraction. That's something that's
great advice. I do the little meditating thing as well. I've learnt now to try and half an hour before I go to bed, and it's something that my wife kind of half jokes about now, that I'm not talking to you, like everything gets switched off for the last half an hour, and I do my thing and I do my breathing, and then I actually go to bed and focus on that. Find a lot of breathing exercises, and has a huge impact in trying to, just like you said, suffer from exactly the same things as you. I'm sure I would have been diagnosed with ADHD as a child, and if I wasn't so active, I probably would have not ended up where I've ended up. So
that's it.
I talk a lot about spirit, mind, body in that connection, and so very purpose-led. Is that, how do you consider yourself on that in listening to those inner voices and being driven by, I guess, your purpose? It
is purpose. I think in life you have to have purpose, whether it's, so work is one thing, so work has its role. Music is not a financial thing for me. It used to be when I was younger, but music has its purpose. It's kind of another form of meditation for me. It's something that when I play on stage, I find peace. Everything's quiet. Everything's quiet. I'm in the moment. So that's really important. Even if I just sit on the piano and play, it's the same sort of feeling.
It almost sounds like it's meditative for you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and then the same thing with exercise, so endurance stuff. Like, sometimes group riding's amazing, but sometimes I just love to hop on the bike and go for a 3 or 4 hour ride on my own. Out the back of Maloney or up to Montville over, through the hills, and just it's it's just that calmness that I get from it, which is...
How good is that? Like when I was doing my triathlon training, I was spending a lot of time up at my place in Mullaney, and there was nothing better. And I remember through COVID, there was no traffic on the roads, and you'd hop on your bike in those rolling hills and just staring out and enjoying the view was absolutely next level. It's the more I think about it, the more I want to get back up there and have another ride.
Well, riding up Montville, there's a little section just before you get to the top where it opens up, and you see the view and the sunrise, and it's just that feeling of I'm nearly to the top. It's hurting, but I'm nearly there, and I just love it.
I know exactly the hill you're talking about, because that vista goes all the way out to the ocean.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
and it's a damn steep hill.
It is, and look, and I'm training with Toby's group. There's some pretty amazing athletes. Like he's coaching Olympians. He's coaching a lot of juniors that are top 5 in the country, and to be able to train with those guys and sort of tag along, and I'm not keeping up with them, but I'm not far behind, and just being able to ride with them and train with them, it's great. It really pushes you as well. So.
The other thing I find quite defining, like through life, it's the setbacks. It's that where you gain your resilience. Do you mind just sharing a bit more about probably the biggest setback that you've experienced and how and what got you through it?
Yeah, look, I guess there's been a couple. Like there's a financial setback when I was in Brisbane. I had a business. Had all my clients invested in one company, all the business invested in one company, and that fell through. So I went through a real tough financial stage, and that's where our mate Richard got involved, and he got me up to the Sunshine Coast and to work for him with the car.
Cars.
That's it. Yeah. So that was probably a pretty poignant change in my life, because it moved from the city to the coast, and I'd love surfing.
How long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
It would have to be 15, 16 years ago now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So a long time ago.
Yeah. And it got me to the coast. I love surfing, and I love the ocean. I love swimming in the ocean, so that's pretty healing for me. So that was a big catalyst. And then the last few struggles, like 5 or so years ago, where I went through the mental health struggles and so forth, finding, exercise, and it's that consistent exercise is the thing that it was the big key. That's the difference between just going for a run every now and then or whatever, but consistently having, to do it every day, same time, same place, that's what helps. So.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's a philosophy of mine, that the consistency beats intensity, and just by doing something and doing it over and over, just doing the reps and doing the reps and doing the reps, and then you're always going to be able to get a result. Yeah. But that's the thing, you find people, they can do the 6-week challenge, the 12-week challenge, but it's finding that thing that you enjoy doing. Then just my philosophy is 26 minutes. You get out there, and if you can do that every single day, 7 days a week, doesn't matter what it is, can be different things in different days. Then the connection piece, I like also what you mentioned about cycling. It's the same, you get that alone time, but at the same time, it's really nice to get out there with your mates and have a group ride and have a conversation while you're smashing yourself.
Yeah, that's it. I guess that consistency is, one of the things that Toby and a couple of other friends who run have always said is you've got to run slow to run fast. And just doing the long, slow, just doing it over and over again. It's amazing that when you go to race, how fast you can actually go compared to what you would do in your training session. So.
Incredible. Is there a lesson that you could think of that you've learned either through triathlon or through music that you think every bloke our age should hear?
Oh, look, it's never too old to start. Whatever it is. Like I said, I only just started triathlon a couple of years ago, and I absolutely love it. And I feel the best I've ever felt physically in my life, to be honest. Like I'm the fittest I've ever been. So yeah, just if you want to do something, just do it. If you want to learn an instrument, just start. It doesn't matter. Like it's just about having a purpose, having a goal, chase it. Yeah, don't give up, don't slow down.
Yeah. I'm just going to use this moment to give. I've just released my book sitting here. I'll give that a little bit of a plug, and that's all about unleashing potential. That's something that I had the opportunity to do, and it was a dream of mine from a small boy. And so, I'm a huge advocate for, just go and chase that dream.
Yep.
And if there's something that you feel passionate about, like you pointed out, whether it's playing that instrument or learning to dance or any type of sport, any type of activity, to get out there and have a crack. And we're a long time dead.
Yeah, it's funny. The Cairns Ironman just finished last weekend. There was a 92-year-old Japanese guy who just completed the half Ironman. So he's 92 and he did the whole thing. So
there's hope for us all. I was over in Canada earlier this year, and I played a bit of old-time ice hockey with a bunch of blokes, and there's a guy out there who was 84.
Yeah.
And I thought, how good's that as an 84-year-old, you're still out there with your mates a few times a week playing a sport that you love. So there's hope for us all.
That's it, mate. That's it.
What's one message that you'd like mature age blokes listening to this podcast to walk away with?
I think our generation grew up with, you got to be tough. You got to be. It's to talk about your struggles or whatever. It's not the thing. It was never the thing. It was always you'd hold that stuff in, and I think that causes. It gets to a point, you get to our age where it's built up. You've held so much in. I think one thing is to open up, to talk to people. You've always got friends, and there's always someone that will listen. So I think that's really important.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that's something that I've struggled with in the past, and I know that that's a trait my father's got as well. Is that you just don't talk to anybody. You don't just bottle everything up and kind of think that if I ignore it, it'll go away, and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just finding the right person that you can share that with. It may be someone that you haven't seen for years. It might be someone, might not be your closest friend or your partner. It might just be someone that's you haven't seen for ages, or you just, whoever you feel comfortable with, talk about it. Don't slow down. Have a purpose. That's my...
Yeah. Just to add to that too, I think that when I've shared my story with people, I've really found that that's been a catalyst for those people to open up. And like we've just talked about off air, we've both gone through similar things. And it's interesting that when you do start to open up to people, that you're not alone, that quite often we've all gone through shit, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everyone's got a story. Everyone has, and it's amazing to hear stories from people that I've spoken to when I was going through my stuff, going, wow, externally you're having the most amazing Instagram life I've ever seen in but deep down you're really, really having some deep struggles. So I think, just everyone has a story and everyone has their own struggles. So, yeah.
Completely relate. So I'm up in Maleny, and same thing. People are thinking I'm living the dream up there, and it was the toughest thing that I'd gone through in my life. But on the outside, you'd come back to Brisbane, and people are like, "Oh wow, look at the life you've got." Like they had no clue. Yeah,
absolutely, and similar for myself. Moving to the coast and having family and living on the beach and everything else, it's great. But 5 years ago, I was struggling. I was really struggling, and having not a real good time mentally at all. And so everyone has their story. It's not all stars and Instagram. I think social media, honestly, it's something that we're all, I love sort of looking at, but I really hope that my kids can see it for what it is and not get defined by it. So
I could sit here and share so many stories. When you do know the intimacy of somebody's life and what they put up there, it's smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
Absolutely. So many people I know have their amazing Instagram life, and you know what they're going through. And look, if that's what makes them feel better and that's what helps them heal or whatever, that's great. That's all fantastic. I'm not one to criticise or anything, but I think it's really important to see it for what it is and to not, to make sure that you do have that open communication and let out anything that's bottled up. So.
All right, let's change gears and rip into the quickfire questions. You ready?
Yep.
Morning run or late night jam session?
Morning run, for sure.
What goes through your mind in the final stretch of a triathlon race?
I've done it. I've finished it. I've completed it. That's the goal. It's not to win. It's just to, although I did come second in the Stratty Salute recently in my age group, it was good, but yeah, it's to complete it.
Congratulations. What are you thinking about in the final moments before stepping on stage?
Connect with everyone and give the audience a great time. Tell them a story.
What's your pre-race meal of choice?
Oats. So overnight oats or oats just a couple of hours before the race.
Yep, my favourite too. Stage nerves or start line adrenaline? What's more intense?
Start line adrenaline for me, for sure.
And what's the toughest race you've competed in so far?
Cairns. Yeah. It was beautiful, but tough. Yeah.
What's the best crowd that you've played in front of?
I reckon Early Beach, there was a festival up there. It wasn't the biggest crowd, but it was with the Bad Loves. And I grew up listening to the Bad Loves, all their albums and so forth. So to have that opportunity to play with them, do a tour with them and play those songs and have the crowd singing back at you, it was awesome.
So good. What's the most underrated instrument?
Bass guitar.
One race you'd do again tomorrow?
Stratty.
One gig you'd relive if you could?
I'll go back to the Early Beach Festival, yep.
Hydration tablets or beer with the band?
Look, I do love a beer with the band, but only one.
And what's your all-time favourite race on the triathlon calendar?
Look, I've enjoyed them all. So because they're all first for me. You know, I've done Mooloolaba twice now, but that's pretty much the only one I've done twice. So Noosa was a first, Cairns was a first. Oh, sorry, Stratty was twice. But yeah, it's they all have their own individual appeal, I think. So.
What's that worst habit you have had in your 30s that you've now mastered?
I don't know if I've mastered it, but procrastination.
Swim, bike or run? Pick one that you could do for life.
Bike.
One song that always lifts your spirit.
Ooh, that's hard. I grew up listening to Stevie Wonder, so and James Brown, and yeah, like I Feel Good. There we go. James Brown.
Couple of good artists there. Spirit, mind or body? What's the biggest lever for you right now?
Mind. Yeah.
All right, final question, mate. Finish this sentence. I believe
you need a purpose in life, no matter how old you are, and never to slow down.
Well said. Mate, it's been an awesome chat. So much appreciate you coming in. I know you're not 100% and you still made the pilgrimage down for the Sunshine Coast, mate. So well done. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you again and look forward to the next chat. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in to the M26 Fit podcast. Remember, real growth happens one step at a time, and consistently working both on your mind and your body for 26 minutes every day will change your life. Hit subscribe to keep the inspiration going, and don't forget to share this episode with somebody who needs that extra boost. Until next time, stay connected and stay active.